Okay, well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so hopefully folks will filter in. I think everyone's still a little bit discouraged or hesitant with all of the changes going on in the funding landscape right now. We're excited to have all of you here. We're excited to have Dr. Harmon here from JMU Libraries, who is going to be telling us about data management with a particular emphasis on the NSF CAREER program. But a lot of what she's going to tell us about, I think, is pretty broad, and especially about the tool that we have here at JMU for data management plans. So, all yours.
Yeah. Sorry, it's been an eventful week. I'm going to sit down and take a peek, a cheater's peek at my notes as I do this. So, thank you, Lauren. So I am the new data services librarian here. Kind of services that I can provide you is I can do workshops, I can come to faculty meetings, I can come to your class and give lectures, do one-on-one consultations on a lot of the topics that relate to data literacy. So that could be data management, data ethics, finding data, and navigating data repositories, as well as one-on-one consultations with your data management plans. If you do use the DMP tool to submit a data management plan, that's going to automatically come to me if you push feedback. And then I'll take a look at that within usually 48 hours, unless I'm sick, which you'll get an email notification for. I am also our OSF ambassador. OSF is the Open Science Framework. That's a generalist repository that I'll go into details a little bit for. So if you have any questions on kind of like where to put your data, I'm also the middleman between us and OSF. So today I really want us to start with the big picture. So what's a data management plan and why does it matter? Break down a few concepts of data management, and finish with a practical walkthrough of the DMP tool. What I mean by that is realistically, when I was creating this, I started doing step-by-step, but then I realized there's concepts that might be better if I explain them in more detail. So there will be like little slides between the walkthrough that will kind of go into more depth of some of the things included of the aspects of the DMP tool. So starting at the beginning with research data management, this is going to refer to how you collect, organize, store, and preserve your research data over time. In the short term, it's about streamlining your research process and reducing friction. So finding the files when you need them, keeping things consistent, and collaborating more smoothly. In the long term, it's about ensuring your work is reusable, understandable, and properly attributed. This is increasingly becoming more and more important as we think about compliance, transparency, and future research and reuse that's coming up. Yes, I like to think that this is not a skill that we are often taught. It's often assumed that it is inherent, even within grad school. So that's kind of what's really exciting about my position is I kind of get to go over it either at a introductory level or like more in depth when the conversation is just on research data management. So I thought it would be nice to just do one of the funny videos I show the students that kind of goes through all the things that could be wrong with data management.
Hello, my name is Dr. Judy Benign. I'm an oncologist at NYU School of Medicine.
Hello, Dr. Judy Benign.
I read your article on B-cell function. I think that I could use the data for my work on pancreatic cancer.
I am not an oncologist.
I know, but I think I could use the data for my work on pancreatic cancer. Do you have the data?
Everything you need to know is in the article.
No. What I need is the data. Will you share your data?
I am not sure that will be possible.
But your work is in PubMed Central and was funded by NIH.
That is true.
And it was published in Science, which requires that you share your data.
I did publish in Science.
Then I am requesting your data. Can I have a copy of your data?
I am not sure where my data is.
But surely you saved your data.
I did. I saved it on a USB drive.
Where is the USB drive?
It is in a box. It is in the box at home. I just moved.
But can I use your data?
There are many boxes. So many boxes. I forgot to label the boxes.
Hello again. Thank you for sending me a copy of your data on a USB drive. I received the envelope yesterday.
You are welcome, but I will need that back when you are finished. That is my only copy.
I did have a question.
What is your question? You might find the answer in my article.
No, I received the data, but when I opened it up, it was in hexadecimal.
Yes, that is right.
I cannot read hexadecimal.
You asked for my data and I gave it to you. I have done what you asked.
But is there a way to read the hexadecimal?
You will need the program that created the hexadecimal file.
Yes, I will. What is the name of the program?
Cytosynth.
I do not know this program.
It was a very good program. The company that made the program went bankrupt in 2007.
Do you have a copy of the program?
I do not use this program anymore because the company that made it went bankrupt. Maybe you could buy a copy on eBay.
I have good news.
You again.
I talked to my colleague. She knew a person with a copy of the software.
Then why do you need me? Everything you need to know about the data is in the article.
I opened the data and I could not understand it.
If you have the program, you will find it is clear.
Well, I noticed that you called your data fields SAM. Is that an abbreviation?
Yes, it is an abbreviation of my co-author's name. His name is Samuel Lee. We call him Sam.
I see. And what is the content of the field called SAM1?
Ah, yes. SAM1 is the level of CXCR4 expression.
And what is the content of the field called SAM2?
That is logical if you think about it.
What is the content of the field called SAM2?
I don't remember.
What about SAM3? Is there a guide to the data anywhere?
Yes, of course. It is the article that is published in Science.
The article does not tell me what the field names mean. Is there any record of what these field names mean?
Yes. My co-author knows what the content of SAM2 is and SAM3. And SAM4.
Can I talk to your co-author?
I'm not sure.
I would very much like to talk to your co-author.
Well, he was a graduate student. He went back to China 2 years ago.
Can I have his contact information?
He is in China. His name is Sam Lee.
I think I cannot use your data.
You could check the article to see if what you need is there.
Please stop talking now.
Yeah, so usually I like to show that so I don't have to stand up here and go through all of the proper data management skills, because it's a lot. Something that I really like to say to everyone is practicing data management does not mean you're perfect. There have been plenty of times where I just wanted a coding project to be done, and I did not comment, I did not have a README file. I tried to go back and I was just like, you know what, I don't need this code anymore. Because to understand what I was doing, sometimes it takes me the same amount of time to just recreate it myself. So I like to see data management as kind of the backbone of the research process. It's about staying organized, making sure your data is accessible, and making it reusable. Not just for the person collecting it, but for anyone who might work with it later. So, for instance, how many of you can remember what you did 5 years ago at 1:13? I can tell you for sure that I don't. So some of these practices are kind of going to help you with that. So that really brings us into what a data management plan is. So it's going to be a short document, usually 1 to 2 pages, that's going to describe how you'll manage your data throughout, during, and after your project. It's going to cover things like data format, storage, documentation, and long-term storage preservation. I like to think of it as both a roadmap and a record. It's going to help you plan ahead, and it's also going to serve as a reference point for others. And so this visualizing it kind of helps me a little bit. You want to think about questions like, what kind of data will you generate? Will it be text files, images, spreadsheets? How big will it be? How will you organize and store it? What folder structure will you use? Who's responsible? Who on your team will keep things organized and make sure files don't get lost? When will the data be gathered and archived? Will you need backups or long-term storage plans? What metadata should you create? This is kind of going to be your behind-the-scenes documentation that helps you and future researchers understand your data. Cool. So when you think about project management, we usually picture a pretty straightforward path. When you plan a study, you propose it, get funding, conduct the research, analyze the results, and publish. This is the traditional plan circled in orange. But good data management isn't just a box you check at the end. It's actually woven into every part of the project management, meaning your research process. That's what the blue paths represent, your data management workflow running in parallel to your project. So when you begin to incorporate all of the data management practices, you're gonna make sure that your data is fair. So that's gonna be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. This means that your data not only will be visible for others to use, but can lead to smooth integration with other data and become more easily reusable for new research. There's another principle, so this is our CARE principles, which stands for collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics. So these principles are going to emphasize the ethical aspects of data management, particularly when you're working with indigenous populations or vulnerable populations. When you follow the CARE principles, you're ensuring that your data management practices respect the rights and interests of the communities and individuals that are represented in your data. Realistically, you want to merge both of these principles in all of your work, because that's going to make your work more efficient and reusable, but also ethically sound and socially responsible. So if you have the DMP tool on your computer, this is a great time for some of the walkthroughs. But I have step by step put this on there. There are 73 slides here. They're all like half a second, so you don't need to be in it if you don't want to. But if you are in, you can play around while I'm going on. So this is going to be your home page where you'll log in. When I say step by step, this arrow is showing you the button to push. Here you'll start to enter your institutional email address. This is going to help the DMP tool system recognize which organization you're affiliated with, because the DMP tool is used across multiple institutions. Once you enter your email, it's going to automatically recognize where you're from, and it's going to redirect you to JMU's single sign-on page. Here, you'll see the familiar Okta login. So once you click that, because we love it, it'll make you re-enter your JMU EID, just like you would for any other campus system. You'll enter your password where you'll be prompted for that multi-factor authentication, and then you'll be all done. This will be your dashboard. It's going to be your workspace where all your plans are stored or created. So I'm going to walk us through creating a plan next. So from your dashboard, you can click the Create a Plan button to start building your new data management plan. That's going to automatically take you to this page. And you'll enter some of the basic information about your project. So you'll want to start by selecting the primary funding organization. This is going to determine what funder template the DMP tool will use. Each of these is going to have slightly different requirements. Here you can also choose which version of the plan you'd like to use. I'm assuming most people in this room are going to use an NSF template. I usually, if I'm showing it, will use the generic NSF, but there's also ones that are tailored, such as the NSF for biology. Depending on the template you select, the questions will vary. So, for example, with the NSF bio plan, this is going to include sections tailored to that directorate, as shown on the screen. You might also see additional tabs if your funder requires follow-up plans post your funding award. And now I'm going to, once you fill this out, this will allow you to see and work through your plan. So we'll start with the project details tab. This is going to include key administrative details, so your project start date, your title, end dates, funder, and so on. The more detail you can include here, the more useful and complete your plan will be. On the right hand, you can see that you can activate guidance from up to 6 organizations, so your funder, your university, or others. So when you click the DMP tool, because you already selected and are using an NSF template, that's going to be your funder. JMU's guidance has been tailored specifically for our researchers with links to local policies and services to help you write a strong plan that aligns with our institutional requirements. So the next part is you can add collaborators. So with this, you would click the Collaborators tab, and this will give you access to colleagues or project partners. This section is where you begin adding collaborators. You can invite anyone with an email address and specify their role within the plan. When you're adding someone, you can choose their contributor role. So they can be a principal investigator, a data manager, administrator, or other. In addition to this, you can assign their access level. So you can make them a co-owner, an editor, or a read-only. So here you'll see I added a test collaborator with read-only access. So that's kind of how it will populate. This is something, like I said, this is a living document, so you can always change the permissions. This is going to allow others to review the plan, contribute where appropriate, and work together on drafting some of those aspects of the DMP.
The co-owner with collaborator, there's a couple of options, like a co-author, co-owner, editor. The read only just can read only, right?
Yes.
And the read only can also download it, or?
Yes.
Okay, then how to differentiate the co-owner and the editor?
So that if you're a co-owner, that's going to be like, you'll have your PI, and then it would be all of the researchers associated with that. And so what that's going to do is separate the principal investigator from the rest of the researchers involved in the project. The editor is only going to be able to edit specific sections of the DMP. They're not going to be able to add in things like further down the line, you're going to see selecting a repository to use, your metadata standards. It's going to be more like editing the text fields, so what your project details are for the data types, but they're not going to be able to add anything besides being able to edit some of the text. And then the read-only, they're not going to be able to do any of that. Does that help? Yeah. So now we'll walk through writing a plan. But before we start with that, within your DMP dashboard, it's a good idea to explore what your funder actually expects. The DMP tool dashboard, if you click the funder requirements at the top, you can use the search bar to browse templates from various funding agencies. The system's going to automatically show some of the most used templates, but you can dig deeper depending on your discipline or a grant program. This is going to give you a sense of what you need to address in your plan and whether there are any agency-specific terms or structure you should know about. So I'm going to show you NSF's next, but I want to go over this in a little more detail. Many agencies are now requiring a formal data management plan as part of the grant process. Even though NIH uses something like a DMSP, NSF calls it a DMP. They're systematically the same thing. It's going to outline how you're going to handle your data. The DMP is going to help with all aspects of this. So if you were to go to funder requirements and search NSF, this is what will come up for the generic DMP. This DMP is going to give you prompts and guidance for each, but it's good to see the overview first. This format is consistent across all NSF directorates. It also is going to provide you links to NSF documentation embedded in the tool to help you clarify what they expect within each section. So back into the creating a plan, because if you toggle in and out, this automatically saves. So once you're in the plan, your Write a Plan tab will walk you through each required section. And this will, again, depend on the agency that you selected. So in this example, it's the generic template for NSF, so it has the 5 categories. Each of these is going to have its own text box, which will have a panel on the right to show you the guidance that I was talking about earlier from NSF and JMU. So each of these, once you select them, is going to have a description here of what should be included. Your guidance will be over here, and this is where you will write your text. So you'll want to enter your responses directly in the boxes, and you can toggle, again, this guidance. That I think could be really useful. When you click on it, as you see, there's these little drop-down menus you can touch, and it's going to give you some guidance on what should be included. So I want to go over metadata, because that's something that you'll have to add. And so when you're thinking about sharing or preserving your data, metadata is what's going to really help make it usable to others. I like to describe metadata as anything that gives your data point context. So when I'm talking to students, I relate it to a Spotify example. If a song is a data point, then any information that provides context to that data point is going to be your metadata. So the artist, the genre, how long the song is, the lyrics, those are all going to be the context that's giving that song meaning. Metadata is going to come in many different flavors. Descriptive metadata is going to tell you what the data set is. Structural metadata is going to tell you how the data fits into the larger project or collection. And administrative metadata is going to manage the logistics. Who has access, where it's stored, and how it's been used. And then a high-level view of what it means to document your data. Think of it as a detailed user manual. You want to record context, methods, instruments, file formats, and even software versions, so someone could understand, replicate, or build upon your work. I will say that this is what I provide feedback on the most, is just suggesting that some of the researchers within their data management plans just add a little more details. A lot of the time you'll state everything you're using, but I'll come in and be like, say this is a PDF or a Word document, or what kind of audio is this? What software package did you use? So now I'm going to show you how to add different research outputs. So that's going to be the next one besides writing a plan. I could go through all aspects of writing a plan, but one, that's going to differ across agencies, and two, it would probably take us a really long time. So again, there's that guidance that's going to be, I'm going to go back a little bit, in this side that will help you with all 5 of those categories, as well as having a document like this up where you can click all of these links and go through some of the verbiage of what NSF would prefer. So for the research outputs, this is where you can describe your project outputs in a more structured and detailed way than just the narrative text boxes that you use when you're writing a plan. Think of this as the structured data version of your plan. So this is going to leverage controlled vocabularies, persistent identifiers, and make it easier to discover and reuse. So when you're adding a research output, this window is going to pop up. You'll be prompted to describe your output type, title, and a short description. The rest of the information helps others find, understand, and reuse what you've created. Here's what it looks like when you select a type. Options are going to include data sets, software, papers, collections, and more. Choosing the correct type helps with discoverability and alignment with the repository requirements. So here you'll see an example of an output, an RNA sequence gene expression data set. Once you fill in the basics, the next step is going to be to select where you're going to store and share these outputs, so your repository. So before we dig too deep, I kind of just want to go over what a repository is and some options. So a repository is essentially an online system where you can store and share your research materials. Think of that as a digital home for your scholarly outputs, whether it's preprints, white papers, conference presentations, or data sets. But it's not just about storing final products. Many repositories also support supplementary materials like research protocols, code books, and documentation to help ensure that your work is transparent, reproducible, and accessible to others. But like most of the things that we encounter, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I like to think of research data repositories as trees in a massive forest. Each is going to play a different role in the data ecosystem, and they typically fall into 3 main categories. First, you have a domain-specific repository. These are going to be like trees growing in a carefully cultivated landscape designed to support particular research community. They're built for researchers in specific disciplines to share and access data that follows the established standards within their field. So if you're in genetics, you might use GenBank. Social scientists often turn to ICPSR. These repositories are deeply connected to their disciplines, and it's going to make them the go-to places for structured field-related data. Then you have institutional repositories. So I like to see these as the strong and steady trees that are managed by the universities or the institution you're affiliated with. These are going to provide faculty and students with a place to share their work within the academic home. Many institutions have repositories specifically for theses, dissertations, preprints, white papers, or reports. So for example here we use Scholarly Commons where researchers can deposit their work and make it more accessible. But if you notice, that's for all the things except for data. And so we subscribe to OSF as a member institution. So that's kind of what a generalist repository is. It's going to be the adaptable trees that thrive in many environments. So these repositories aren't tied to a single discipline, making them a great option for researchers whose work doesn't fit neatly into domain-specific or institutional repository. And so OSF will provide you that flexible, open space for research from any field, including data deposits. So your choice of repository depends on your field, funder, or even your journal. JMU Libraries is again that member of OSF, so I will always push that for you, which is going to be that great journalist option. I'll say that workshops on OSF appear. I did one this semester. I'll probably do one next semester if you ever want to dive deeper. However, some journals have preferred repositories, so it's worth checking that before you submit. So you want to ask yourself a few key questions when you're selecting a repository. What are your funder or journal requirements? What are your data sharing needs? And do you need something with curation services or access to controls? And this kind of just goes through what a data repository can do for you. It can host data, assure long-term sustainability, assign persistent identifiers, all of the things on the screen. Saving your data on hard drives and servers is not preservation, it's just storage. So this is kind of how a data repository will keep that as a living place for your research outputs. So OSF is an open source platform designed to help researchers manage their projects from start to finish. It's useful across all disciplines, not just the hard sciences, and supports open, reproducible research. OSF is going to enhance transparency, facilitate collaboration, and helps with organizing materials. So this is a list put out by NIH for what they look for in a journalist repository, and that the journalist repositories that meet these are repositories that they would support. OSF meets all of the requirements to be a preferred repository, providing structured, persistent, and open data sharing options. Here's where OSF really shines. It's more than just storage space. It's designed for collaboration. You can control versions of your work, track updates, and even connect with other tools like Google Drive and GitHub. It's a space built for research as it happens, not just a final place for data sets. and that's what makes it stand out among other generalist repositories. Some other things I just want to say about this. You can choose your project to be private or public. You get different storage options based off of what you choose. OSF really wants it to be open, so you get a lot more data when it's open versus when you're private, but that's tied to every aspect of the project. So it's not going to be just your one research plan. You get storage for your code. If you add research outputs, every little thing you add in is going to be what that gigabyte space will be for. And this software is, like, we have as a member institution a JMU affiliation to it, but when you leave, your OSF account stays with you. It's just any work you do outside of the university won't have that JMU affiliation with it. It's also a space where you can collaborate with people outside of the institution, and it's an international collaboration space as well. So I could go on and on about OSF, but those are some of the things I just wanted to share. So if we go back into DMP tool, we're looking at the repositories. Here's what will happen when you select a repository. You can search by subject or keyword to filter repository type. And this is where you're going to connect your output to where it's going to live long term. You'll also be prompted to select a metadata standard. This is going to ensure your data can be read and interpreted by others, especially across different platforms or disciplines. You can search for known standards, or if your data type doesn't fit, you can indicate that as well. Not all fields have a dominant metadata schema yet, but I'm seeing more and more of them pop up. So to kind of describe and provide some context for that, interoperability is when your data can talk to other systems. This matters for discovery, reuse, and long-term preservation. So open formats, common vocabularies, and standard units are going to help with that. So here's some file formats that are going to promote that long-term access and reuse. They are widely adopted, non-proprietary, and don't require special software to open. So if you're ever in doubt, these are kind of your go-to guidelines for that. So here's what it looks like when you add a metadata standard, and now that's going to be part of your plan. Once you've filled everything in, you'll see your research output summary. You can repeat the process for multiple outputs. Each can have unique repository, formats, and access plans. And so I'm going to walk through the finalized aspects. Once you feel satisfied with your plan, you'll click the Finalize tab. By default, the plans are going to automatically be private. If you want to make them visible to collaborators, your institution, or the public, you'll need to complete at least 50% of the plan and make sure it's not marked as a mock project. You can also register your plan for a DMP ID, a persistent identifier like a DOI. This is going to connect your plan to things like ORCID, datasets, and publications. It's also a great way to demonstrate that you've followed through on the commitments that are outlined in your data management plan. So you can download your plan in several formats, PDF, Word, etc. I'm going to recommend that you download it as Word if you want to do any additional editing. You want to use approved font. So right here you'll see NSF's guidelines. And remember that once you download a version, label it clearly. Versioning, data management practice. Good one to start with. So something outside of that is you can view public plans if it's helpful to look at a complete DMP. So you can use the search bar and search for your funder. You can look for institutions. So that, I won't lie, when I get a DMP in a field I've never heard about, I go here and look at what they put in, and it kind of helps me cross-validate what could be missing from the DMP that was submitted. So DMP tool is great, but it's also being rebuilt right now. I think that they're going to finish this in the summer. The DMP tool current version relies on older technology, So it makes it hard to update and evolve with some of the user needs that have popped up. The new version is going to introduce a complete redesigned data model, not just for how templates and questions work, but how we think about data management plans altogether. Some of these big changes include moving from a single DMP per project to a project level structures that can contain multiple DMPs so that you can manage any sub-projects or revisions more easily. Templates will have more flexibility, including support for persistent identifiers and structured questions that's going to help you with that machine readability and interoperability. Something that a lot of people are excited about is this rebuild is being designed around the idea that your DMP is a living document. So it's going to better reflect what DMPs actually are meant to do. Plus you'll see a lot stronger API functionality, so tools and platforms can integrate more seamlessly using the DMP tool. So to wrap up, a data management plan is more than just a requirement. It's going to be your roadmap to how you'll handle, document, share, and reuse your research data responsibly. Remember that your DMP is a living document. It's not just something that you're going to write and forget. It's meant to be updated, revisited, and used throughout your project. And the DMP tool is here to help. It has templates, built-in guidance, and features like sharing, exporting, and linking to repositories. So it's designed to help you create that actionable, shareable, and editable document. These are some resources, especially the data management one, which provides some more videos on the DMP tool, as well as some resources related to that. And if you want to just always get it from there, it'll take you to the DMP tool. So yeah, you have any questions? Wow, did that in 40 minutes. I'm proud of myself.
Are we getting faculty to use the DMP tool at JMU? Like, are you getting good response?
I wish I was getting better response. But the position is new. Our access to DMP tool is not. So I'll say this semester I provided feedback on 3 DMPs.
That's not many.
Yeah. So as I have more conversations like this, it's one, introducing it. 2 is me trying to find out what are you doing if you're not using this. I've been at conferences where some of the other individuals have done studies on what faculty are doing. And what they're doing is just finding a plan and copying and pasting it, and then using it or like changing it slightly to meet their project needs. And that technically does the job. But the DMP tool is kind of going to help you learn the aspects of it. It'll make it easier for you to know what's missing. I'll provide you feedback to make sure that you have a stronger DMP to submit to your funding agency. So the ones I don't see, I can never be like, hey, you're missing X, Y, and Z. Honestly, the people who are submitting them submit pretty solid DMPs, but they ask for feedback, so I try really hard to find something to expand on. So yeah, tell your friends, colleagues, everyone.
DMP tool is it accessible by faculty and students?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so a student can have an account if they're creating a project. I'm going to say that's not impossible, but it's more rare. I'd see it if you had students on your research team. So for instance, when I do conversations like this, I've never offered it at like the classroom level or to groups unless they're doing research. Not that it wouldn't be helpful for them to get a feel, create test projects depending on what their discipline is and what they have to look forward to as they advance the research route of wanting to be a researcher. So that way that you can look through everything. So yes, everyone here has access to that. Technically, anyone with an email has access to it. It just won't be tied to our institution.
And this maybe it's a slightly different question. Because typically when you submit proposal, that proposal also includes data management plan. So when I plan to submit proposal and I include this database tool, then you provide any some help to fill in this database plan session.
Yes, yes. So you can always schedule a consultation with me. I'll say, I'm pretty sure in my first year I've done no more than 6 DMP feedback, and of those 6, I've only had 2 or 3 consultations. Usually the consultations are pretty in-depth. I learn a lot about all aspects of the project, and that helps me tailor the kind of feedback. There are some DMPs that I get that are, I wouldn't say skeleton, bare bones, but the project just doesn't require as much detail as some of the other projects that have multiple different aspects to it. Yeah, so I think some of the stuff that's often forgotten on that side is any of the materials you're using outside of what your data is. So you can mention like whether you're using educational materials, your slide decks, your if you're doing an interview, your interview transcripts, or even how to go about the interview. So what prompts did you use? So it's really putting any and everything in that could make it so somebody can come behind you and pick up where you left off or what you did in the first place. Yeah. You're more than welcome to take the sheets with you, and I have more across the tables if you want more. That's going to be, one is for just a general overview of data management plans. That's actually on OSF, so if you type in the top, you can actually have that entire lesson plan. And then the other one is an infographic for the Nelson memo, which kind of goes over what the memo is, and then the QR code will take you to the archive of where that memo exists currently. I'm sure Ready's website will include if there are any major changes to that memo, because we're all going to get an email related to that. But from what I've heard for our people working in our legislative branches is that it's kind of flying under the radar right now. So right now they believe by the end of the year the memo will be mandated.
That what will be mandated?
The memo here. So
Yes,
that's going to
okay.
require, yeah. But I will say, when all of the things on the internet started getting changed, this is one of the first things that was taken off of the White House's website. So it took me a while to figure out where it existed, because I knew it existed still.
I will say, we in ORD have started including the DMP tool on our checklists. We've been sharing it with faculty. I'm hoping this summer to maybe do a little bit more funder-specific templates and such and guides,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll be part of it as well.
Yay, yeah, and as you come up with that, I mean, the DMP tool has a lot of things that might be helpful in that. I actually just had a meeting before this with a new repository team, ODGA. I'm doing great for just having this meeting. And so as I learn more about that and get access, I'm going to serve as our ambassador for that. But from what I took from our meeting today, it's also going to be a place where there's going to be a bunch of educational materials, so guides, things that you can use in your classrooms. And it seems to cover anything that's related to data. So as I learn more about that, I'll also put out messaging related to that, and it's restricted for us to Virginia data. And a lot of that is like governmental data, but not excluding other data. It seems like they have like 14,000 data sets within that. So just like you can navigate OSF, this is just another option. So a good complementary session to this will hopefully be in the May Symposium. If you go to the data management tool one, it'll be this, plus some expanded since it only took me 40 minutes. And then there will be one on data repositories. So some of the things that I mentioned, other generalist repositories, what not to do with sensitive data, but also what options do you have available to you with sensitive data. So there's so much when it comes to data repositories. And the position is new, which means I'm getting a feel for what you all need, and that will enhance what access to different services we have. Some of the